Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Blunt Talks with Gina, where you get the raw, real, and honest truth, whether you're ready for it or not. So today we have Jenna Chittum. Welcome back, Jenna.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, so Jenna's been my client going on 6 years. She did one competition before we worked together, and then we've done several preps together as well. So today I wanted to ask Jenna a little bit about the trials and tribulations she's experienced through some of these preps. Something that I some one of my opinions is that prep doesn't really create problems. I think it just exposes and then amplifies whatever is already existing, whether that's something really good or whether that's something that's a little bit more challenging. And Jen and I like to set goals and kind of evaluate and reflect on life in three categories: health, wealth, and relationships. So we're going to get into health today. So, Jenna, how many preps have you done now total?
This is my fourth prep. Or no, this is my third prep.
Third prep. And
No, my fourth one.
yeah.
Yes, my fourth
Yeah.
prep.
Okay. Yeah, and,
Yeah.
if you could look back and kinda compare it to what you're experiencing now, because Jenna's about a month out from her next show. Physically, mentally, when we're looking at health, do you think one has been more taxing than the rest? Does one really stick out to you? And if so, why?
I would say probably my 2020 prep was the hardest
Mhm,
just because of everything with COVID. And I still got everything done, like food steps, all that. I was still able to do that, but I was working out at home.
mhm.
And, you know, I feel like a lot of bodybuilders can relate, but the gym is just kind of your place where you go to just train and not think about the world. And so when I read that the gyms were closed, I definitely allowed that to throw me off, even though I didn't stop doing my protocols. Like my mental was very thrown off, and it took me a while to realize that it's up to me to like harness that in and still have a good mental state and manage stress. So I
Yeah.
would say that was the most difficult time. But yeah, other than that, the preps were good. Everything that prep comes with, is can be challenging, but I would say mentally that was when I was the most taxed and challenged.
Yeah, I can definitely relate. We both went through a prep in 2020. And it's funny because I was doing about 45 minutes of Stairmaster 6 days a week on my off season. And then even going into prep back when I was working with a different coach. And then when quarantine happened and the gym shut down, he was like, "How long does it take you to do your 40, 50 minutes of stair," or we had a calorie goal. That's what it was. So I had a specific calorie goal and he was like, "How long does it take you to hit these calories?" And I was like, 45, 50 minutes. He was like, "Okay, so just run for that long." I was like, fuck. Yeah. So I did 45 to 50 minutes of running in the morning. One of the books that actually really got me through that prep was Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. I read that book
Mhm.
and I was like, oh yeah, I'm on fire. But before, kind of like you were saying, the gym was my place. The gym was my sanctuary, and really the only place that I go because at that time I was also working from home. So that was the one place that I really got to get out of my home and be around
Mhm.
other people. And it also exposed some of my some of the things that I need to work on, one of them being discipline. Like just getting a hard workout in at home can be pretty challenging. I don't know if you experienced that too.
Just very distracting. And
Yeah.
then at the time, my son was like a little under 3 years old. And so that was the only time of day too for me that I got to leave and just be by myself for an hour and a half or so. And so working out at home, he's crawling on me. He needs milk. He wants food.
Mm.
Um, and of course, I did all the things that he needed, obviously, but it was definitely challenging. And there would be times that I would literally have him strapped to me because he's like, I don't understand why you're not holding me. Like, I don't understand why you're not, because he was still just so little. He's like, I just don't understand why you're telling me to go sit down and you don't want to play. And
Oh,
kind of like that with, animals too. Like, I know both of our dogs really like love our attention and lay on our feet all the time and do that. So I just had a cat at the time, but
I had a
it's
puppy.
animals are distracting or even like texts. I'll be working and he'll just be like being cute and I'll lay on the floor with him and it'll have been
Mhm.
like 15 minutes and I'm like, what are you doing? Get up.
Yeah, I do that with work sometimes too. Working from home can be challenging, and I think a lot of people realize that during quarantine. It's like I'm drinking coffee, I'm working, and then I go to put my coffee up, and then next thing you know, 15 minutes later, I'm like, "What are you doing dishes right now? What are you
Yes.
doing?" Yeah, I would just get distracted. I still do. I get distracted, and it's not a procrastination. I genuinely forget what I'm doing.
It's
I
you're
go to do
associating yourself with being at home. So like if you step away from your office, like my office is in my living room.
yeah.
And so I go to the kitchen, I'll do the same thing. I'll be like, oh, I really should rinse these off really quick, or I should put these up really quick, you know?
Mhm.
And then you're like, oh no, I need to go back to my desk. Like, what am I doing? So
And I do that with
yeah.
workouts. I was doing that during quarantine. I would get I would get distracted by my phone too. One, I had a husky puppy, which was oof, that was hard.
Yeah.
During prepping during quarantine, I was like, I think I get a little taste of what it feels like to have a child because it
Mhm.
was a very
Even
she
wild.
was way too young. Yeah, she was like 6, 7 weeks when we got her. She was way too young. And it was a constant wow. It was really taxing, but I would find myself not motivated to work out at home, like, I would find myself just laying on the floor scrolling on TikTok. I would cut my workout short, wasn't really pushing myself, and I was like, "Damn, I thought I was more disciplined than this," but I think it's because I was really thriving in the gym. So, yeah, I can definitely
Mm.
relate to that being taxing. What about like the most physically taxing prep? Or is there one that stands out to you as far as what you put your body through, your hormones, your metabolism, the amount of cardio that you were doing? Because I don't think a lot of first time competitors or people that haven't experienced a prep yet, I don't think they really understand how much we actually put our body through to get to this goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say probably this one so far.
Yeah.
My protocols aren't much different than before, but I think before prep was kind of all I had. Like
Mm.
my relationship wasn't good. Like literally the last time I prepped, like me and the father of my child broke up because it just like you said, it brings stuff to the surface,
It
right?
exposes and amplifies stuff, whatever is already there. Yeah.
And now I feel like I'm okay being alone. I'm okay doing things by myself. And not that I don't care about prep, obviously, that's why I prep because I love it, but that's not the every fiber of my being,
Yeah.
you know? And so I think it was almost toxic tunnel vision
Mhm.
in 2020 because I was like ignoring the world. And now that I'm just like more aware and okay with how with being alone, I'm still single to this day. Um, but I would say this one just because I have the awareness now
Yeah.
to focus, whereas before I was using it to numb. And so it's not that the cardio is challenging or that, I mean, it's challenging, but it's not that I'm like, ugh, cardio. You know, I'm like, okay, it's time to do cardio. Like, this is fine. But I also think about that I need to be prioritizing rest and I need to get sleep. And
Mhm.
so I think I've been like having trouble finding that balance
Yeah.
and then dieting, been dieting for a while now, and I've started having cravings and getting hungry. And so I would say this one has been the most challenging, just in a different way. Because I'm so much more aware of my emotions and that I need to be recovering. And whereas before I was like, just run me into the dirt. I don't care about my hormones. I don't care about my sleep. I don't care about any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Like it was like I was just looking at a list and completing it. Whereas now I have my protocols and I complete those. But it's so much more than meets the eye when it comes to just like recovery and sleep and mental health. So I think it's just another layer to this prep that's been a little harder versus just like mindless prepping, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And something that I thought about was at first listen or at first glance, it almost would seem like, oh, well, maybe it's just easier to numb your way through prep. And in a
Mhm.
way, it is easier, but then there probably are some pretty severe repercussions afterwards because you're using prep as an escape, right? And then after prep is done, you don't have that escape anymore. You don't have that substance, so to speak, to numb what you're experiencing. And then it's
Mhm.
going to hit you like a fucking wave. And I think that was probably partially why you struggled during your off season too,
Oh, yeah.
because you were using prep in a different way, maybe in a less healthy way than you're going about it now. It might be a little bit more challenging right now because you have that awareness, but I think you're going to have a much healthier recovery and off season. And I kind of just wanted to be real with our listeners right now. And if you don't mind sharing how much exercise you're doing right now, it's, prep towards the end, especially, is not necessarily, or bodybuilding is not necessarily the healthiest sport. Um,
Mhm.
all have different values. And so if you have the value of, I'm not going to do any more than X amount of cardio, I'm not going to let my food go below this certain amount of calories, then you can hold that value and you can reverse diet and you can pick a show a year later. But there's also this
Mhm.
competitive athlete part of us that we're willing to do whatever it takes. And sometimes our bodies don't want to let go of the body fat. It's a survival mechanism. And so our metabolisms downregulate, our hormones downregulate. Our body does what it can to preserve the fat that you have left, and then you have to push harder, and then you have to do more cardio and eat less food. And this is definitely not something that we would ever recommend lifestyle, or we're definitely not deeming it healthy. But if you're comfortable sharing what you're doing for cardio and exercise, let's hear it.
Yeah, so just like Gina was saying, real raw and honest, it's we're not saying that this is for a lifestyle client at all.
No.
uh,
No, please
but
no.
so right now we're doing 20K steps, which kind of going back to the mindset I was in, like thinking about prioritizing rest and health and this and that. Like right now, that's like a little bit out the window, but not everything, not all of it is out the window. But my body is very much doing that right now where it's hanging on to this last bit of fat that's in the legs, like a little tiny bit in the midsection. Upper body has been ready for a while. Like I definitely don't have that even super even fat distribution. Like I'm very much bottom heavy.
Mhm.
Um, so in the mornings, I'm doing an hour of fasted cardio, and it's really not bad. I walk at kind of like a normal pace, and walking is something I do anyway, even in my off season. But right now it is really cold. And so I'm doing that just on my treadmill for an hour in the morning. Typically, I would go outside and take my dog. And before I know it, it's like feels like I've been walking for 5 minutes. I've been walking for an hour. So I wouldn't consider that super taxing. I actually really like doing that in the morning, but an hour is a long time,
And
right?
you
In the
do
morning.
meditate through it a little bit too, right? So I think before we were distracting a lot, just scrolling on TikTok, watching YouTube, etc. And you shared with me
Yeah.
you've been doing something very different this time around.
Yeah. So I'll put on just like high frequency music, or I'll listen to like Abraham Hicks or, something like that. But typically it's just high frequency music. And I typically listen to it for the whole hour and use that time as a meditation versus, like Gina said, scrolling on TikTok. Because also TikTok makes it go by really fast. And we're not shaming anyone that uses TikTok for cardio because it is very like fun and hilarious and you learn things. But I really wanted to be present this prep. And so I had to kind of force myself to do that at first. Like it wasn't very relaxing at first. Like it made it feel longer. And like I had all these thoughts just racing. And the music really helps with that though.
Yeah.
And I don't even have it blasting in my ears. I just kind of have it as like a background, just so I'm not like focusing on Tex chewing on his bone or, whatever sounds in the house. But that's what I do for morning cardio. And then I have right now a 20-minute warm up walk. So kind of a little bit more faster paced on the treadmill, like maybe like 3.5, just it's just for 20 minutes.
Right before you
And
go to
then
sleep.
I do my work.
Mhm.
Yes, I do my workout, takes about 45 minutes to an hour. And then post-workout, I do 45 minutes of the Stairmaster. And then I'll brave the cold when I get home and I take my dog out. So, and I'll take him out and let him run in the yard, but I actually take him on a walk, like when I get home, because he's a mini Aussie and he's wild and he needs to walk. He does not care about the cold. He just wants to be outside. So,
Yeah.
hour cardio in the morning, 20-minute pre-workout walk, 45-minute Stairmaster, and then I walk Tex once or twice
Plus the lift.
steps a day. And I had actually been struggling to hit that. And now that I have my treadmill at my desk, it's so much better because I can slowly walk throughout the day. And if I notice like right before the gym that I'm at, 16, 17K, I'll hit that at the gym easily
Yeah.
and still, and I can leisurely walk text. Like I don't have to be looking at my watch every 5 minutes to make sure I'm, hitting my steps or whatever. But that is
The vo
cardio protocol at
Yeah, and that's
Yeah,
it's insane to say that out loud and to even hear it as your coach, and just keep in mind, our listeners, a couple of things. One is we did not start out with that. That's
yeah,
something that we have gradually built up to. And Jenna has a serious athlete mentality. And so there are certain clients where we're surpassing an hour of cardio and mentally they just cannot take on any more, or maybe physically they just cannot take on any more. And I'm not going to push them past that point. If
mhm,
you know your body and you know your mind and you're like, I need to pick a different show, then I'm going to support that. But Jen really has that athlete mentality and she can hold that weight. Um,
mhm.
the other thing to consider is like something like this for general weight loss is absolutely fucking insane. So
Not
unhealthy.
necessary at all.
Not necessary. You're going to wreck your metabolism. You're going to regulate your hormones. And that's something that we go into this process knowing is going to happen. And then we go through a recovery phase. And the whole time we're testing our hormones, we're getting lab work done. We're really taking care of our body after the process. Um, but you can almost think of this like, I mean, think of Olympic athletes. They're training 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day sometimes. And so we think it's absolutely insane. And I think a lot of people really bash competitors and coaches for doing an extreme approach like this. But I think when you can compare it to other elite athletes in different sports, it makes sense. And the other
Pretty
thing
much.
is, you're a
I
conscious, what's that?
No, you go. You go.
I'm like, you're a conscious competitor and athlete, and you know exactly what you're getting yourself into and what the recovery is going to look like. So that is the one caveat for when I do agree when people are kind of shaming the industry, because a lot of
Mhm.
competitors don't understand what's happening with their body and they don't understand what they're going to have to go through afterwards as far as recovery.
My training for bikini is genuinely easy compared to like I did track and powerlifting at the same time when I was a teenager.
Hmm.
And I was at practice for seriously, I would practice for track and then I'd have to go to like do the lifts and the powerlifting stuff. I was training 3, 4 hours a day
Yeah.
because we would meet to run in the mornings and then I would have my powerlifting training after school plus more track practice. And that's not to mention meets and traveling and all that stuff. And not that the training is easy because obviously we do have muscle developed. We're doing cardio, we're having to recover. It is taxing, but the training to me is the cake part. The food is the harder part to me.
Mhm.
Uh, Not even because of the flavor of the food or the type of food it is. I enjoy my food. But when you get to that point where your body is hungry, and this can vary for people, you guys, like you can be on the lower end of calories or you can have actually quite a bit of food. But when your body is burning through this food and you're constantly moving, and your body's like, hey, like I need more energy, I need more fuel, and
Mhm.
your hunger cues are going to be higher.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'll have just ate my meal and it'll be a good portioned meal, lots of veggies. lots of chicken, even if I'm having a refeed and I have quite a bit of carbs, like sometimes I will be hungry after I eat that just because my body is just running on overtime. So I would say the training, even though it sounds like a lot, like it's fairly easy.
It
The
is.
training isn't that hard.
I agree. And I only really know one athlete that has a different perspective, and that's one of my best friends, Candace. She eats chicken and green beans twice a day year round for like the last 10 years. And she doesn't get sick of it. And she just meal preps that, and then I think she has eggs for one meal, but she eats like that year round. It doesn't matter if she'll go months, periods of months without going to the gym because her job is so insane. She's an overnight RN. She also picks up a lot of hours, especially during quarantine. She was working like 60, 70 hours a week. And for her, eating was the easy part, but that's very, very rare, at least in my experience from who I've talked to. So I agree with you. I think the training part is the easy part once you get into the swing of it, once you get into that cadence, but then the nutrition is really, really challenging. And I do want to get more into some of these different techniques that you've used to really overcome and get you through these preps in our next podcast. But I want to just trickle into it a little bit with this last question for you, Jen. Recently, you had a very powerful meditation that has seems to have really shifted your perspective on the why behind your prepping and maybe how you can overcome this next hurdle, and wanted to see if you'd mind sharing that with us.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. So I had a call with Justin Lovato, and I told him what I was struggling with prep. And I was struggling with body image, which not in the sense that I know it's going to happen. I know the physique that I want is going to happen, but it was really getting to me, like because the body fat's been sticking around on the legs. And so from a coach's side of my brain, I'm like, this is normal. You've got to push, like it's going to come off. It's that last little bit. But kind of my inner self and just me as a person, I was just feeling really unworthy and just not like myself and just totally kind of like out of my own body. Like it was like I was just like a robot. And so I was explaining all of this to him, and he had me do what's called a soul seat meditation. And so I did it in the sauna. I put on a little bit of frequency music just because I was in a gym. So it was, there's people talking, walking in and out. So I put on a little bit of frequency music, and he told me to get into a deeper meditation. So typically I'll only do like 5 to 15 minutes. And I'll do the longer ones when I can, right? So I made time for it. And about 20 minutes in, I was in a really, really good position to get in the soul seat. So just pictured it, and I sat in it, and I sat there and I was literally sitting in a seat, and it had like kind of like white light coming out from behind it, and I looked gorgeous in this seat. Like it was just a beautiful picture, right? And so then I start looking around as I'm sitting there, and I hear a kid crying. And so I'm looking around, and then I see a small little girl, and she's just throwing a tantrum, just really giving it hell. And she's kind of like hitting the floor and like kicking her legs, how kids do. And she was doing it at a man's feet. And so I was looking, and then I could already feel like tears on my face, but I was staying focused. But the little girl was definitely me, and the feet were definitely my dad's. And so I'm like I'm so mad. And then so I get up from the seat to go help the little girl. And when I land on the ground, like I'm kind of like coming down towards her, and I land on the ground and I pick her up, and she's still throwing a fit, just so mad. And I'm just like, I've done for Silo a million times. I'm like, it's okay. Like, you're just mad right now, aren't you? And I'm just giving her love. And we sit back in the seat, and I'm talking to her, and I tell her she's a good kid. I'm like, it's going to be okay. You're a good kid. And I tell her, it's going to make me probably emotional. But I tell her, I was like, you don't need anyone's approval. You don't need his approval. Like, you're a good kid, is basically what I tell her. And she kind of like, she's got the sniffles and she's ready to get down. And so I put her down. And then she starts like growing up and walking away. And it's me. So
Mm.
me is looking at me. And I'm wearing my suit and my heels. And she starts walking away. And then she turns around and she's like, are you going to leave? And me sitting in the soul seat, I said, I had never left. I'm never going to leave you. And so then it was like I opened my eyes after that. And of course, I was just a wreck because it was just a lot to take in. But I went into that. Justin also told me to set an intention. And so I went into that wanting to, I was like, why am I having so much anxiety and self worth issues in this prep? Like, I know from a coach's standpoint, I will be fine. I am going to have the package I want to have. It's just coming in due time with the work that I'm doing. It's scientific, like scientifically, I am going to get there, right? Um, so I went into it just wanting to know why I had so much anxiety and so much self-worth issues. So through the meditation, I found that I definitely tie my self-worth to like a father's love or a man's approval or and I've been without, a man in my life for quite some time. And I've never really had been with a man that was had guidance and leadership. And I didn't have a father that was that way either. So I think having the knowing that that will come for me too was really helpful. But I think getting to the root in this meditation, knowing that I am tying my worth to a man's love or a father's love or something, and knowing that that's okay to be upset about that or have feelings about that versus like pushing it down. And I definitely did that with my last prep. And so I think this prep has definitely, in a spiritual way, just rose up things that I've needed to take care of,
Yeah,
that being one of the huge ones. So that's currently what we're working on.
it's amazing. It's really beautiful. And it's something that I thought about too is you already knew that. You already had that knowledge, but sometimes feeling it and embodying it is so much more powerful than just knowing it. Because somebody can tell you, you're beautiful, you're beautiful, you're beautiful. And you're like, yeah, I'm beautiful, but then something happens or you experience something or you go through a period of growth and then you feel beautiful. You don't just know it, you feel it. Those are two very different states of mind. And, one's going to be way more powerful than the other, just being surface level. So I think that's really, really cool that you
Yeah.
experienced that.
And I think seeing myself sitting in the seat, because it looks how I look now, in the meditation, it was like, okay, that's me sitting in a seat. But I've never looked at myself. I've looked at myself and been like, dang, your makeup looks good. I like your
Yeah.
outfit.
Yeah.
You're cute.
Yeah.
But whenever just the image or the vision, whatever you want to call it, came into my head, and I was like, oh my gosh, like you look like an angel just sitting there. You look so beautiful.
Yeah.
And my son tells me that all the time. He'll grab my face and he'll be like, "Oh, you're just so beautiful. I can't stand
Oh.
it, mom."
Oh.
And so, and I'm like, "Oh, you sweet boy, but I think it was more than just an external beauty also. Like it was just my
Mm,
inner self with no judgment
mm.
towards me or towards the child or, you know, it was a great experience. I highly recommend you guys um doing the soul seat meditation for sure.
Yeah, and I think Justin might have some information about that on his page. If not, definitely can
Yeah,
definitely could do a little reel on that. That would be really cool for a lot of people. Um,
yeah.
but yeah,
You
I've
guys,
only had a few like really powerful meditations like that in my life, and I meditate daily. So it's awesome that you were able to experience that in a time that you really needed it. And I definitely noticed your energy shifted after that.
oh yeah, it felt so much lighter. And even the meditations I've done since then, you know, I set it different intentions every time, or sometimes I don't even set one, but I have been doing the longer ones. So when I do my part of my recovery is the sauna. And so that's what I do in the sauna. I don't get on TikTok. I don't, you know, and your phone gets hot anyway, so you can't really
Yeah.
have it in there. So I'll just put on the frequency music. I'll have it low. I'll put it in my backpack, put my backpack in the locker. And then because I am a little bit more tired right now, this hasn't happened yet, but I don't want to like fall asleep in there.
Mhm.
First of all, because that could be dangerous.
Yeah.
But so I always set a timer for like 30 minutes max that I'm going to be in there meditating. And so 20, 30 minutes in the sauna is typically what I do right now.
Mhm.
But I usually make it to about 25 minutes before I open my eyes. And that is like a huge milestone for me to be, you know, doing that 3, 4 times a week versus just doing that 5 minute meditation every day. So I find time to meditate every day, whether it's cardio, but I think it's really important to be still and meditate. I feel like you can be in a meditative state, but I think it's really important to be still and meditate too.
Yeah, stillness just
So,
brings a whole another element. And
yeah.
yes, the only thing that's on the same frequency as love is stillness. So,
Mhm.
yeah, the love and stillness are on the same frequency, and if you can really practice stillness, um, you'll you'll feel what true alignment feels like. No resistance, true alignment. If you don't really know what alignment is, I think you have to experience it, and you can't experience it through stillness. Um,
Yes.
and that's something we could definitely go into depth about too.
Yeah, we could talk about this topic forever. And the first thing that I thought of was, of course, I grew up in a religious household, so I know like a lot about the Bible, which the Bible has great teachings.
Yeah.
And so one of my favorites is "Be still and know that I am." You
Mm.
know, it's like even, you know, there's religious scripts and texts, and you know, from all different sources. But seriously, you have to be still and know that have that knowing that everything's okay, that it's genuinely okay for you to like sit and be still and have emotions or don't have emotions or take a little rest, you
Let your
know?
mind do its
Uh,
thing. That's what people really struggle with is their thoughts and trying to turn off their brain, and you can't just flip a switch and turn off your thoughts. And so instead of trying to fight intrusive thoughts or even just labeling them as bad or negative, it's just learning to observe them and be okay with them and just let them pass without judgment versus fighting them. So,
yeah,
be like, welcome the thoughts, welcome the emotions, good, bad, ugly. You can remove that label if you want to. And I think that's the hardest part. But, once you can really accept that and practice it, it's something that can be life changing.
yeah, and if you guys are first time listeners or first time meditation, like you've never even done a meditation or something, you want to try it, just know that it's okay if your thoughts are racing at first. Like you're thinking about, oh, I need to pay the water bill and
Yeah.
oh shoot, I have a meeting, you know, with this person or dang, the car's really dirty or, you know, those thoughts are going to kind of race, but you can ask yourself, be like, I really don't want to think about that right now. I want to relax right now. And you can ask yourself for permission. And it might not work right off the bat, or it might not seem like it's working, but you can kind of shake those thoughts off and get back to it. But don't just stop because you can't stop thinking, because that's part of why it's so important to learn how to be still, you know?
Yeah, that's what I when I explain meditation to people, I think I've learned how to do it in a way that's being received well now. Um, because it's what I really struggled with. And I'm like, meditation is the practice of getting distracted and then being like, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to be meditating and pull yourself back to that anchor, whether the anchor is your breath or the music you're listening to or the blackness behind your eyelids. You're going to get distracted and then catch yourself, be like, "Oh shit," pull yourself back. Don't judge yourself, don't get frustrated. I think that's what we tend to do is we get frustrated with ourselves for not being able to focus, but focus is a skill. And so when we're meditating, we're literally practicing a skill of focus. And you get better and better at it, and you're able to relax. You relax your body, you relax your mind, and eventually you do transcend the body and your thoughts do shut off. But that's something that takes a lot of practice and sometimes years. I've only experienced that a handful of times with meditation alone. Um,
Yeah.
but even so, it's something that I actually love and look forward to doing every day. So,
Yes.
yeah.
And so I wanted to say before we go that it's even if you guys try the soul seat meditation and you're thinking, oh, like Jenna's was really powerful and it was really like your soul seat meditation could be something just completely different and off. Like, I mean, it could be about a job, it could be about you mowing the grass, it
Mhm.
could be, it doesn't have to have this like root crazy meaning. You could go into a meditation and be like, not sure what you should do with your day off or something. And it
Mhm.
could, your meditation could be about you like mowing the lawn. And
It
that
brings
is
you
just as
clarity.
important as yeah, like it's just as important as what I experienced because that's what's aligned with your path to do that day or whatever. Which we could talk about this forever, but I just want people to know that it doesn't have to be this crazy. Like that's only happened, that's the only time I've had a meditation like that.
Yeah,
My other ones I've had eye-opening experiences, but that was definitely
really
um
powerful.
it was what I needed that day. It was genuinely, it's what I asked for and it's what I needed that day. But typically my meditations for me are just about being still or I'll ask for guidance for something, but typically it's just my time to just be still and not really have a whole lot of thoughts.
Mhm.
So just know that if you have a totally different experience, that's literally the purpose of it. Like no one's going to have the same experience.
Yeah, and you don't have to label something like more powerful, less powerful, more important, less important. It just is. So just experience it and, take it with a grain of salt. But I think today was really awesome. I want to go into depth on some of these practices that we've been doing, meditation being one of them, in our next episode. Jen, is there anything else that you want to leave our listeners with before we close it out?
Just thank you guys for listening and allowing me to be vulnerable, very definitely out of my comfort zone to talk about things with childhood and just stuff that I'm struggling with internally.
Mhm.
But I feel like this podcast is definitely a safe place to do that. So
Yeah.
thanks for listening and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for being here. And you guys really, really love that we have a few people following us along this journey. And we're excited to keep sharing and really just letting you guys hear our experiences and what we've learned from our experiences. And yeah, we appreciate you. So that will be it for today. We will catch you guys on the next episode.